welcome to What's Next in Guitar Pedals with at guitar.com live. I think that was right. Shall we introduce ourselves, fellas? I'm Mick from That Pedal Show.
I'm Thorpy from Thorpy FX.
Jason from Walrus Audio. Oh, Nick, gotcha.
Oh, we stumbled over one another. Look at that. Okay. No one needs to know who we are.
Nah. Okay, you go, Nick.
Nick Greer from Greer Amps.
So it seems to me you three make all the pedals. You know the answer to this question.
Sort of. I guess we have to retain our intellectual property and not put it out there for guitar.com to steal. So we'll go with sort of big hand, small mouth.
I got two things to say to you, Thorpy. One, your beard is looking fantastic.
I know. I'm going after Nick. That's what it was. I saw his at NAMM.
I mean, he's the man stands alone in the beard game, right?
100%.
It's strong.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I trimmed back down to summer weight since it's so hot here, you know?
Yeah. And then you have me and Mick over here just like, well, we don't know what we're doing at all.
Yeah, just pretending.
Yeah. Yeah, dreaming with our, yeah.
Oh, all right then. I'll kick off. We did have a quick chat about this before we got going. There was a couple of emails flying around. And one of the things that strikes me about everyone's so obsessed with what's next. And it seems to me anyway that we are in the most unbelievable age of guitar technology in general, but specifically pedals. And I don't know, when you think about the kind of thing that me and Dan are into anyway, which is fairly old school, you know, rock and roll, valve amps, analog pedals and all that, it already feels like the future, to be fair. So it's about application, application at this point. What do you think, Thorpy?
Well, I mean, we started our company off as going down the analog route, and I do look at some things like, particularly plugins, which obviously doesn't relate to pedals unless you compare sort of like the orange OMEC, which ports the plugins to your pedal board. That sort of thing is so far beyond my personal abilities that it does seem like the future is already here. But the problem I have with that is, as cool as they are and convenient as they are, they seem to lack a tangible physicality.
Uh-oh.
I think we just lost Thorpy for a second.
Oh, he's frozen. He's stuck in
Oh,
one.
no.
I think
in analog land.
Oh, man.
I think the digital police were listening and they went,
They were.
Yeah, they're like, cancel him.
Got him.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hello.
You're back.
I don't know what happened there.
you said the word
You're
analog.
shaming digital. Yeah.
Was not shaming digital. I will not have that. No. No. I guess, so what I was saying was, I think, you know, with plugins and everything, it seems like the future's already here. However, there's something tangible about having a physical product, and that's what's great about pedals. Whether it's a digital pedal, whether it's an analog pedal, I think you can do so much in your phone, but to be able to step away from your phone because it does everything and do something bespoke and, I don't know, individual with your pedal board, etc. I think that is going to remain a sort of a thread even going into the future of what pedals can offer.
The actual unit itself is something integral to that tangible thing, you know, like where you actually can hold something.
Yeah, 100%.
And instead of like scrolling through a menu on your phone, you know, and finding something and pulling it up. Yeah, I agree with you. You and I were talking about this earlier about how, like, you know, eventually one day we're going to be 3D printing 1958 Les Pauls off, you know. And while that sounds like fun, you know, there's something, you know, to unfortunately, I'm going to use the word authentic here, but there's something inauthentic about that, you know, whereas like the, you know, I'm not saying, you know, I'm not saying anything negative about relics or anything like that, but I am saying that like there's something that you can't quite pull off even with a relic and all that fun stuff that they're doing, that people are doing nowadays with like guitars, that exists in a 1958 Les Paul. And there's also something in the realm of the pedals where, you know, you have a clicky foot switch and some knobs and you can turn something and something changes, you know, whereas like with the digital thing, it's there, but it's like to me, it's always kind of 80% there.
Yeah.
90% there even, you know, and like some of it's really close, but like there's some like amp modelers, for instance, it's like the amps are really close, but where they're missing something, it's like there's a soul type thing, and I don't know how else to describe it. That's a cop out, I know, but I have no other way to describe it.
I wonder if it's the general aesthetic of what guitar is and the history of rock and roll, because at this point in time, it feels like rock and roll as we know it is in part a heritage pursuit, because I'm not saying it's dead, not for 1 second, but I am saying the aesthetic of rock and roll, the sounds, and all the people that we still look to in the guitar world. You know, the reason that any kid ever picks up a guitar is because they see somebody stood there playing one.
We're always looking back, you know, in some way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think also, you know, you see somebody cool playing the guitar, whoever that might be, and you go, I want to do that. So the thing has this, back to what you guys were just saying, the thing has this object value long before it has any functional value, because you can't play anything. The day you watch Jimmy Page or whoever it might be, you know, John Mayer, the day you see that person making this noise and being this sort of icon, you have no idea. So at that point, it is purely object value. And I do think that's why pedals retain that object value, because you kind of look at it and you're vicariously experiencing what you might do with that.
Yeah.
So then comes, once you're into it a little while, and once you get into playing, then comes functionality, because then you learn a little bit about what you might want and what you don't want. And then, you know, maybe if things go well, you go out and you play your first gig. So then you need to turn stuff on and off, and then you need different combinations of sounds. So it feels to me like there's this journey of being inspired in the first place through to either, you know, writing and recording and being creative, and or performance. And what's required for those two things feels to me quite different.
Mm.
Yeah.
Where are you on all that, Jason? Because you, I hope the other guys won't be offended if I say you guys are probably kind of the furthest ahead in the tech, you know, in terms of the functionality of your pedals.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
I don't know about that. I think just as we progress, we're always going to be fans of the tactile experience, right? And I think that's for me and for the people that work here, that's never going away. And that's honestly what I think all of us would agree. Like, you know, digital sort of all-in-one modelers, or, you know, stomp boxes, I guess you wouldn't even really call them that, but like the larger, you know, platform digital pedals are never going to, like, you know, overtake stomp boxes. I don't think stomp boxes are going anywhere, because of for us, you know, it's about the journey, like you said, and it's about the chase of ingredients in a recipe of a sound. And you can do that for sure, certainly inside of you know, a multi-effects processor, but it's just a totally different experience. And there's people that are into that and very good at it, and that's fantastic. I don't want it to go away either. But I think there's something just at a core fundamental level, in terms of like a sense of creativity that you kind of get with stomp boxes and stringing them all together, that you just can't achieve any other way. And that's okay. I don't know that we need to try to replace that, you know, in any way. And as we progress on the tech side of things, you know, I think that we're just going to continue to strive for really great sounds, but not leave that simplistic form factor, stomp box, knobs, idea. I'm so intrigued by getting really great sounds out of a pedal that's as simple to use as an overdrive that's got 3 knobs. I think that's really difficult. It's easy to say, but it's very difficult to pull that off. And so, yeah.
Sorry, man, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
It feels to me like that's where we are now. So in this discussion of the future,
yeah,
that level of, to use a horrible phrase, user interface.
No, that's right.
Now that we've got digital control and analog sound, for example, your recent delay pedal, the D1.
Yeah.
What's the name of the series?
Mako.
Yeah. And is that? I've always wanted to ask you this. Is that because it's a Shark processor?
Yeah. Mako being like the fastest Shark in the ocean, marketing, whatever.
But when you look at the DSP in that, and yet on top there's 6 knobs. I think they've got one over there somewhere. Yeah, maybe.
Sounds right. Yeah, 6 knobs, 3 toggle switches. Yeah, 2 stop switches.
We've all got.
There's usually one right here, but it's not there right now. Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and even so, I'm kind of known as being something of a technophobe, but even I can use that.
Yeah.
But stick a timeline in front of me, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So
great pedal. I'm. How do we get these great sounds and great flexibility, great functionality, but it's not a tweaker pedal? Does that make sense? That's just 100%. Me. I don't love menus. I don't love buried stuff. I don't even really love hold this switch down and the knobs change to their alternate job. I don't even really love that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how do we avoid that at all costs and just make it, hard to find a bad sound on in any knob position? And
I'd suggest you're going after what's called complex simplicity, like going forward into the future. You want the pedal to be powerful, complex, and all the rest of it. But just like an iPhone, my 3-year-old can pick up the iPhone and destroy all my apps and everything in a second. But she can get to Netflix. She can do all of that on the phone. This is a computer. How the hell is that possible? Yeah. That will, I think, happen with regards to guitar pedals, but it will be a sheen over the surface, which is simple, and then the innards will just be super powerful. We're talking Kemper writ large, really.
Yeah, that's one of the things on the digital side that I like when we think about the future. I just see, that type tech and capability just shrinking down. I mean, you see it in tech everywhere throughout the years. I mean, it's large and awesome, but then now it's like small and awesome, and it's just more convenient. So
you'll just be able to attach your iPhone to a massive output transformer.
Yeah.
Run the tubes will blow.
Right. Yeah.
So I always find it fascinating about the future because we're always looking to, futuristic artists as if they have any idea of what the future holds, just because maybe they're a little bit more out there in terms of the music they create. But I rather suspect, Nick, what's your take on people who come to you to buy pedals? Most people that I know who buy pedals aren't looking to be the next Brian Eno. They're looking to sound like Jimmy Page still. I walk around music festivals when they're on, and 15-year-old kids are wearing AC/DC and Rush t-shirts still.
I mean, I kind of, I don't know. I hate to say it this way, but and maybe it's just me being the old guy, sitting on the porch yelling, "Get off my lawn!" But like I always kind of I kind of look forward by looking backwards. Because that's the way that I've always done. And it's just because the sounds that I'm chasing are sounds that I've heard. They're not sounds that I'm creating in my head from like nothing. I mean, because there's I don't know how to explain it other than to say that, like, if I'm chasing a sound, it's like 2 or 3 sounds that I've heard layered, usually what I'm going for. Like our Royal Velvet was a big step in that direction for us this past year, and that pedal is like 3 different AC30 type tones that I have in my head, rolling around in my head. And how do I get those 3 kind of combined and not overdo it, and let it be what it is, but let it be pushed by another pedal. Like if you want to stack a Dane into it, or a 385 into it, or anything like that, how do I make it so that it has that sound, but it has that sound, and you can stack these things into it, and it really still retains that sound and everything. So I always look kind of forward by looking backwards. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but that's where my head is. And it is because I'm still that kid walking around wearing, today I'm wearing denim, but most of the time I'm wearing a band shirt, and it's usually a band that, was around long before I was around.
But I think that's how music happens as well, isn't it? You grow up and you listen to Angus or Skinner or whoever it is, and they become the sum total of your influences. And if you are creative and you want to write and you want to create music, what comes out is the sum total of that experience. So it's the same thing, I think, with creating music. It just depends how out there I don't even like the term out there, really, because it's sort of it's just however you feel inspired to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, like for me, it's about taking one of these things that I have, a stack of back here, and just diming the thing out, having fun, like whenever you turn the thing all the way up and your ears start to kind of like slowly go away, and you're realizing like I'm doing some permanent damage here, but I'm grinning the whole time.
Okay, so there's a question then. Gigging has changed beyond recognition for most people in the last 10 years, certainly in the last 5 years. And I guess pedals are a big part of that in terms of the functionality they offer. How do you guys feel about the volume thing, i.e. silent stages?
Stage volume,
the digital tech that enables that to take place.
I personally like stage volume. I like it whenever I'm playing, because I like feeling the concussion wave on the back of my leg. I like there's once again, we're back to tactile response, in the pedal format, but also, in just the format of music, the feel of air being pushed against your backside while you're playing is, is something, there's something to that, it can strangely make you play more aggressive or less aggressive. It kind of sets a tone for a bunch of different things. And it's, I don't know that Jimmy Page or Jimi Hendrix or any of the other, guitar gods would have ever done some of the things they did if they didn't have those concussion waves coming off the speakers.
Man, that is an interesting thought. What would all that have been like with no stage volume?
Right.
And it probably would
come across a bit dispassionate, sort of a little bit muted. It's like electric cars are a fantastic thing, and they need to happen, and they'll progress, and that's wonderful. But there's nothing.
Oh, we've lost him again.
The digital realm hates him whenever he starts.
Yeah, here he goes again, talking about new tech. And
I think he was.
Stop. Am I cutting off?
Oh, he's back. He's back.
Back. Oh.
Where did I get to?
You said there's nothing like.
Okay, so there's nothing like being in a car that's got a massive engine and it's kicking you down the road, and that's not the same as an electric car. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't sound the same, and so the overall experience is massively muted in the electric car, even if it's got more performance.
Yeah. I think there's probably people half our age, with apologies to you, Jason. There's probably people I don't know, in their early 20s, let's say, who would listen to this and think, "Wow, God, you guys really are out of touch. You're old, and hanging on to all this stuff from the past feels anachronistic." The question there is, hopefully, growing up, we all despised the music our parents listened to. I hope. feels like rock and roll to survive.
Yeah.
There needs to be a generational shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here we all are, you know, obsessing about this rock and roll that we love so much. And yet I'm seeing 16-year-old kids do the same thing. And part of me goes, no, you're supposed to hate this. Come on, give us a revolution, please.
Yeah, I was watching a game show the other day, and one of the contestants was a 19-year-old that was wearing a Nirvana shirt, and she was saying that she and her parents listen to the same music.
Yeah.
You know, and that they really don't have differing musical tastes, and so yeah, that speaks volumes to what you're saying.
Yeah, there's something cool about it, and there's something really scary about it, maybe. But
There is.
Yeah, I don't know if the tech, you know, I don't know if the runway is long enough or maybe steep enough to push the same kind of jump, you know, that created that music that you're saying we should hate now. Well, I mean, I just feel like it's plateauing, you know.
Okay.
It's not flat, I don't think at all. But I just don't know that it'll ever be as steep as it was. You know,
Yeah.
I hope it will be. I don't know how that's going to happen.
If it is, it'll be crazy.
It will be crazy. You're right. You're right.
Yeah. What about that then? So, I don't know, Thorpy, think about the technology that enabled certain music to happen. What was that?
Well, going back to the original, you know, look at old fuzz pedals. You know, they were all striving to sound different, weren't they? And that technology didn't exist. Oh, well, sorry, I'll go again. It did exist, but it didn't exist in that format to allow that music to sound so gnarly, so far removed from their parents' nice music. So that they were actively seeking those things because they didn't exist. Now, I can't imagine now what doesn't exist, because it feels like someone somewhere has done everything from a sonic perspective to a certain degree. You can only manipulate an audio signal so much, but I think we're in a place where the ergonomics, it's boring, I guess, but the ergonomics, the logistics, the simplicity is going to just get better and better and better. And so the learning curve for those items will reduce. And so you'll get back to playing the guitar more rather than fiddling with your pedal board as such, possibly. I don't know. So maybe you'll get more music because you're not messing with parameters as much. I don't know.
That's fascinating. So technology is a barrier rather than technology as an enabler.
Oh, absolutely. Most of the time. I mean, if you look how much easier it is to do this, we're all over the world. You know, guess what? We're talking crap in the same way we would down a pub.
Yeah.
But admittedly, my end keeps going wrong. I don't know why. But yeah, this is definitely an enabler. But it has been a barrier in the past.
Yeah. I think that to speak to that, I've had like one or two pedals that I've traded for or I've purchased that have had like alternate functions, you know, in their knobs, all kinds of different internal switches and different things going on them. They were digital, and you know, like I never even fully, I feel bad for saying this, but I never really fully got into it because every time that I changed one thing, I couldn't remember what I did. And, you know, you needed a list of, you know, a sheet of paper with a list of everything that you did in order to get that sound, in order to get back to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and that was very frustrating for me. And it was one of those things where I had friends that used those pedals, and they sounded great. And I was like, okay, how did you get there? And once we got to step 12, I was like, okay, I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes, you know, we can forget that we still have to play something.
Yeah, right.
We still have to, they need an input, you know? And for me, it's really easy to just think that I don't need to like improve, which I'm probably the worst guitar player in these 4 boxes here, but there's always room to grow as a player, just in the music, like, you know, at a technical music level. I don't know. I think it's so easy to forget that, and so easy to get caught up in turning knobs and exploring, and, you know, especially with pedals with, you know, 60 virtual knobs. If you download an app and dig into them, you know, it's like, that's cool. But you still have to play, and it has to be inspiring, you know, it has to be something interesting. So I don't know.
I mean, I would say that in the last 5 years, was it 5 years, 10 years ago? When did TC Electronic release that thing where you could put your phone to the pickups and download a new? That felt like the future.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still does.
Yeah,
tone
that
print.
was crazy.
Tone print. Yeah.
Unbelievable, that sort of thing. I mean, you know, the only issue I had with that was I just ended up playing the same tone prints every, you know, it didn't, it was, I could, like Nick said, I could have had 200 different tone prints. It made no odds. I chose what I chose, and that was it. And then it's no better.
Well, okay, I think that's a really interesting theme then. So if you think back to when Line 6 introduced, they were kind of like modular pedals, so you could get like a delay module.
They came after
No, this was a single stomp, wasn't it?
Right. After, the tone core, right?
Yeah, you could drop modules in the pursuit of versatility. Like you say, endless options, in the same way that tone print gives you endless options, but you end up only using, you know, your favorite one. I think that's true of multi-effects too. Most of the people I know who've got multi-effects units and amp modelers tend to end up with 1 or 2 amps. So I suppose from a sort of marketing and sales point of view, you walk into the store and you go, oh wow, it's got 1,000 presets, and you end up only using 3. I wonder if there's anything to learn from that, or indeed if just the power of sales and marketing is always going to be pack more stuff in and people will think it's better value.
Well, I mean, like for me, especially, like, you know, I always try to simplify things as much as I can in my design process. I mean, this is pedal number 859. It has an LED. So the first 400 of them didn't even have an LED, you know? And, you know, like the fact that you know, whenever I was building this, like the first one of these, the future was an LED. You know, it wasn't another knob. I want to add an LED to this. You know, I want to be able to know when it's on by looking at it instead of hearing it. You know, and so like there's something to be said to me for simplicity. Like whenever a product gets too complex, I'm like I said, I bail personally. You know, but that also goes with sheer numbers of different things. Like I've found, like, guitar wise, pedal wise, if I have too many of those things, then they almost become like, if I have too many guitars, it becomes like a barrier to my creativity. Because then I'm like, okay, well, what would it sound like on that Strat versus this Strat, or on that Les Paul versus this Les Paul, because they have different pickups, you know. And instead of just playing, I end up wanting to hear the different sounds in different scenarios. And so, like, it's not just with respect to, like, you know, pedals and knobs and all these different things. It's everything. I think that there is such a thing as too many options, even though I know that someone out there is yelling at their screen right now, saying that I'm crazy. But you know, I've got this collection of amps behind me. I play 4 of them. Yeah. I really go to 4 of them on a regular basis, and the rest of them I really enjoy having and playing whenever I do. But on a regular basis, I'm playing 4 of them.
Yeah, and that's why you limit yourself to 60 guitars or less, right? You keep it.
I mean, it's currently 70, 78 or so. You know,
you need to tone it down then. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I've got to sell some.
Yeah, one of the things that we always talk about is, I think some of the most important parameters are the ones you don't put on the pedal.
Yeah.
You know, it's that drives a lot of our development sort of mindset. Is it's all about what we don't offer. And you know, we can talk all day about that, but it's for those reasons. You know, it's the same reason. I mean, H9s are cool pedals, but I just couldn't do it. You know, it's like there are a bunch of cool sounds in here, but it's overwhelming. You know, you end up using two. And it's like, this is an awfully expensive, very capable machine to have two sounds, you know?
Actually, you see that really regularly, don't you? You see two H9s on boards all the time.
Yeah, I had two. I was guilty. I was one of those. Not anymore. But.
I guess on the one hand, there's a confidence on the part of the player to know what they like in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to be able to know what you like, you have to have been able to try a load of stuff. And I suppose we are all in
the journey,
privileged position of having done that over many years.
Yeah.
And maybe the appeal of those things is that, oh wow, you know, if I buy a Kemper, for example, then I can hear every amp in the world. Until that really difficult day when you hear a Plexi for the first time, stood 5 feet away from it, and you're like, oh wow, that's not what I thought that sounded like at all.
The screen said Plexi, but it's not this.
Yeah, because I seem to have gone to the toilet. Did you?
I had the reverse. I bought the Kemper for the at-home experience, and then I ended up in that same place where I liked a couple of sounds, so high watt Plexi, a high gain amp. And then I found myself, I'm just going to go and buy the high.
Yeah. Oh, he's gone again. Talking about high watts.
About analog gear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I back?
You're back.
Oh, you're back.
I think it's my voice. Sorry. What I was saying is the Kemper made me buy the real thing.
Oh, no way.
Essentially.
I guess
the experience of the Kemper made me go and get the real thing.
Wow, that's how we hope it happens, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean that kind of makes sense. It's kind of like, you know, we've had a similar. We've had a couple of folks say that they've heard like some of our amp model type pedals, you know, our analog simulations, and they've gone and compared to like a real one and snagged one of those too. You know, like that's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah. So is that
like,
something?
Like the Walrus? What is it? The 3D5. That pedal, like, yeah, I wound up tracking one of the amps down that you guys modeled it off of because the pedal
cool.
I mean, pedal sounds great. So yeah, I mean, like whenever I got the amp, I was like, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What about on the production side then, guys? So you're all involved in building equipment, obviously. So on the one hand, by the time you've done all your hard work, it ends up in a saleable product that gives people like us the ability to get millions of sounds. What have been the biggest shifts in technology over the last, say, I don't know, 5 years? Let's keep it brief, or keep it recent, that have changed your business and the way you can do stuff and make stuff. Thorpy, let's start with you.
From my perspective, 3D modeling, CAD software for the electronics, 5-axis CAD machinery, and things like that. Not that I have that, but we outsource that side of things. All of that has made it easier to make the product I want to make. And going forward, it's making it easier to envisage the things I want to make because I know I can do it. I'm not limited by the industry that I'm in.
So
being a bit backward, it's certainly not.
Are the advantages to you there being able to do something you could do by hand quicker, or are they enabling you to do something that you just couldn't do manually?
It's a bit of both. It's R&D costs come down because I can physically, well, I say software manipulate things and see that it's going to work. I can run simulations on circuits. I can pair up the physical, the PCB with the enclosure in a 3D manner, make sure it all fits. And whereas previously that would be backwards, forwards, and all that is money. And so I'm now attempting things that are more complex because I don't have that cost. I don't have to worry. So there's that side of things. And then the other side of things is that, the electronics side of it is just, you can do whatever you want, really. You've just got to imagine it. And there is always the ability for someone else to manufacture that for you if it gets to that level.
What about you, Nick? Has anything changed the way you make stuff in recent years? Because I guess one of the issues all three of you face is ever increasing demand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So back in '99 or so, whenever this was built on perf board. This still has a perf board circuit in it, and the leads are tied together. They're tied and twisted and soldered, and then there's a rubber ball of tape in here. It's a rubberized, vulcanized tape that insulated everything, and that's the way that we built these things. And moving from that to where we're at now with the Lightspeed and the other pedals that we're building, it's a different scenario, and much like Adrian said, we can do all of the modeling, now in our CAD software. We can see if something fits. We don't have to, like back in the day, whenever I was doing this, I was making all the connections with the leads. Now, I'm everything's on a board, on a PC board, which I know that's like something that everyone's like, okay, that's not a huge step, but for us it was, or for me.
Yeah, sure. Because it changes everything.
Right. It changed everything. And then, the circuits get more complex, and suddenly you're not dreaming of an LED, you're dreaming of a second knob, and, and stuff like that.
Slow down.
Right, I know. We got 3 on this thing right here. It's going crazy already, I mean, but that's the thing, we went from, we've gone from the side where we were building on perf board all the way up to where we're at now. And, there's still headroom for us to go. Like we can still, shrink components to smaller size, physical size components, and move to different formats and all that stuff. And, it's just always one of those things where there's an ever increasing and an ever like expanding possibility now due to technology. And the technology's allowed us to do things that I never envisioned back in '98 whenever I started building pedals.
Mm-hmm.
UPS is here.
Ah,
sweet.
Is it a new guitar?
I don't think so. I think it's just parts.
What about you,
I'm not having a sign for it, so it's just parts.
What about you, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, we've employed some technology that's not new, but it's definitely new to us recently. That's really helped out. I mean, in the early days of Walrus, everything was Throughhole. Not to get too far in the weeds of the technical side of things, but it was all Throughhole components, and we still have several designs that are. But we've since moved. Most new designs are SMD type production, and that's just because we've been forced to scale a little bit bigger than Throughhole will really allow us to sustain. And then another huge thing we've done is, when we come up with a design, I mean, you guys all know, but most people don't really think maybe too much about the mechanical side of things. You've all talked about this, but the enclosure design is not a gimme. I mean, you have to actually iterate through, versions of the enclosure, just the metal enclosure, because stuff has to fit right. It has to be perfect, or else you can't, produce these things at any kind of scale. And so, we would hand write out drill files for enclosure manufacturers, and then we'd, wait 2 weeks or 4 weeks for a prototype only to get it in to find out that we're off by a millimeter on a hole position, and then it's like, that doesn't matter. You do the whole thing over again. And we've since got a 3D printer. So this is like, I don't know if you can see this, but this is $1.25, and it lets us map out, like you guys were saying, putting enclosures in models, and then I can turn this into, in 3 hours, what I'm holding, and know that when I send a drill file to an enclosure manufacturer, they're going to send me a sample, and it's going to be dead on.
It's going to fit, yeah.
I mean, literally, you've got this, like, it's the same, you know? Like, it's exactly the same. And so that's huge. That's been huge for us, you know? We don't iterate through enclosure prototypes almost ever. It's just send me one. So, like, it's like a sanity check. And then we're going, you know? So the 3D printer has been huge for us.
What are the learns?
Breaks all the time.
So you brought it up, so I'm gonna go there. You talked about SMD, which is obviously quite a contentious subject in the pedal world. Where is that going? What are the learns there? Because I think we've all had the conversation where you said you can't just take a Throughhole design, make it SMD, and it's going to sound the same. That just it doesn't work. You know, you have to develop.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
yeah, and so my assumption is that there's still a lot to learn there, and there's still a lot of dev to be done in really making that stuff sound great.
Yeah, I mean, everything we learn when we work with Throughhole components is, you know, you look into a lot about component selection, right? You guys have all been there, and like us are probably still there, and you have to kind of consider component selection when you're talking about Throughhole. You do with SMD as well. It's just, but it's a whole nother, you know, bucket of parts to be like picking through and figuring out which, you know, types of capacitors and resistors and transistors, and, you know, which package sizes. Everything's totally different. So you have to kind of learn, you know, all those standards and types of components and things to be able to even know like how to look through, you know, that world. But I think, you know, when we first kind of got into this, there was some hesitation and some sort of like apprehension to buying a pedal that was SMT versus like, you know, Throughhole parts populated by hand. And I think there's value there. But, you know, most people that were doing anything that's Throughhole at scale, those things weren't populated by hand. They were populated by machine.
Of course.
They were Throughhole parts, but still populated, you know, with a machine. And I think you just get a lot greater longevity and, you know, a more robust build when it comes down to it in ways when you use SMT parts that you just can't do with Throughhole parts. So it's not that one's better necessarily, but what do you guys think?
Throughhole's definitely
so I
Thorpy.
Sorry. Yeah, so we're fully Throughhole at the moment. But I think with the camouflage, we reached a limit as to how many parts we wanted on a PCB. And there's just a physical size limit. And also from the build process, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare because they take so long. So anything more complex than the camouflage, we know it's got to be designed with SMT in mind. It's just going to have to be that way. But as much as that upsets some people, it also enables us to do bigger things, better things, more complex things. So I just think it's just something you have to accept. There will be a romanticism for Throughhole, and I have that, and I love that. But if I want to achieve some of the things that I know I have in my head, well, we just have to try different technology. But they, like Mick said, you can't, for instance, if I took one of my earlier designs and made it surface mount straight away, it doesn't work. You have to tweak them. Having gone through a process similar, that those designs are not portable. You have to put time and effort into making the SMT one as good as it can be. Certainly that's my experience anyway. And you know, we're going down that route at some point. for more complex pedals. So it's coming.
Nick, sorry, we cut you off there.
All good. Yeah, we're kind of up against this weird barrier right now with the Lightspeed, for instance. You know, where our demand is just through the roof right now, and you know, we've had to consider. You know, we're still currently Throughhole with it all, but you know, scaling Throughhole it's difficult. It requires it just simply requires people, more people, and you know, unfortunately, like the pandemic being what it is, especially here, you know, I was trying to avoid talking about the big P word, but
I'm surprised we made it this far.
Yeah.
but I mean, the pandemic being what it is here in Athens, Georgia, where I'm sitting right now, we've our state turned university back on. We've kind of done some crazy things, and we've been in the news lately. This little town that I'm in, and it's not really putting more people in the shop is not really an option right now.
Sure.
You know, like the solution to our current problem is hiring, but you know, that solution is not really on the table right now, just due to what's going on with the world right now. So you know, that's the thing. We're kind of running up against a similar thing where we're trying to scale, and you know, if demand stays where it is or increases, you know, a little bit, we may have to begin the tweaking process and start, you know, moving some things over. It's not just the Lightspeed. It's there are quite a few other circuits that we're seeing just an increased demand with. And I think most pedal manufacturers are kind of in our boat right now, where we're seeing this huge demand, and you know, like I think we're all great. I think I can speak for the people that are seeing that demand and saying that we're all grateful for it, but we're all kind of going like, how do we do this? You know, because like I said, the solution of the everyday solution is hire more people. You know, put more of these in people's hands. You know, and just get people soldering. But I don't know how you do that right now.
Two things sort of come out of all your comments. The first is that I wonder if it brings us back to the top of the conversation, which was about this tangible thing that you hold in your hands. I sense some reluctance on all of your parts, where you feel that you know, a move to a different technology, there's just sort of a sense of, yeah, we might have to do this, rather than galloping towards it going, yeah, this is the best thing possible. So I don't know whether that's kind of leaving this thing that you love so dearly, you know, or having to move on from that. That was the first thing. The second thing was, all of you are experiencing increased demand. And I've heard lots of people say things like, oh, this pedal boom can't go on. You know, it's been ridiculous. It's got to burst at some point. But I think, I don't know, I was hearing that in 2010, let alone 2020. So what are your thoughts on that? Jason, let's come to you.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I just think that the idea of, you know, I've always looked at it like pedals are a recipe, or ingredients in a recipe. And I don't think that's ever going away, nor should it. And I think that's a huge, it's one of the most like tactile ways to be creative with playing guitar, other than playing the guitar. You know what I mean? And there's just something fundamentally different about the experience of, you know, cursoring over to whatever parameter you want, and then, you know, scrolling with a big knob. I mean, it's just not near as fun. So I just think people are aware of that, and it's just going to continue to drive, you know, sales of stomp boxes. And you know, I think that's great. I think it should. You know, I'd be worried if you know, people started to just kind of like lose the respect for just like I think Nick said, or somebody, just like turn a knob and it happens. You know, just like it's just right here in front of you.
Yeah, I guess the internet has been a massive. I mean, it seems crazy to be talking about the internet in 2020, but you know, we're all old enough to remember when it didn't exist, right? So it has been an enormous enabler, because it used to be the case that guys like you would build something, You'd have to go to a store. You'd have to convince the guy who owns the store to buy it off you. And he'd be like, I don't want any more pedals.
Yeah.
But now, you know, you literally access the whole globe from your own websites. So that exponential growth alone ought to be enough to see demand, you know, I don't want to say forever. I don't want to you know, tempt any fate, but it's been the huge enabler to the pedal business, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Thorpy, you came around in your business started in the age of the internet. So I guess, how's that? Have you always, you do sell direct, don't you?
Yeah, we do. For places that we don't have dealers in, we sell direct.
Yeah.
For us, you know, I did initially try to go to some stores, the local stores where I was, and you know, I had that response. No, we don't need any more pedals. We've got the Boss DS1. We're okay. And and you know, so our first dealership in the US was Pro Guitar Shop, and our first dealership in the UK was Anderton. So, you know, and both of those had a massive footprint on the internet.
Right.
So, sorry?
I said, just those guys.
Yeah, right.
Well, I know we're really lucky. It's I was sad that Pro Guitar Shop disappeared, because they were just awesome, and they were definitely trendsetters in that sphere. And you know, but now we've got people like yourself, Mick. You know that pedal show is for, I think we'd all acknowledge that, hey, bloody hell, you're an enabler in this business. You know, you get our stuff out there organically, and people are able to enjoy the experience of watching that show, and then because of the internet, they can just buy it instantly.
Yeah.
Well,
whereas,
sorry, go on, mate.
Yeah, go on.
No,
whereas before they would go to the shops, and you know, there might be a delay.
Yeah, or the reluctant sales prevention staff member. Sorry, I don't mean to speak ill of people who work in guitar stores, because I love people who work in guitar stores, but we've all had that experience, haven't we, where you go into a guitar store, can I try that? No.
Right.
But thanks for saying that, Thorpy. I mean, we all owe a debt to Lee and Chappers and Andy, Pro Guitar Shop, for kicking that whole thing off, and a handful of others, Gearman Dude, you know. But without necessarily singling anyone out, you're totally right. The whole industry changed. So the way things were made, the media that helped promote it, and of course, manufacturers own access to doing their own media and their own, online. What Josh at JHS has done with his YouTube channel is phenomenal. Yeah. So
it's not just that we, the manufacturers, have the internet and are able to like reach customers directly, right? That's half the story. The other half is you guys and all the people that you just mentioned and more, that, you know, you're the ones also creating demand for the other people on this call, you know? I mean, that's been massive, and that's maybe one of the biggest ways that the internet has contributed to our demand or our businesses, is all the promotion that happens on the internet, you know?
Yeah, well, there was I was right in the middle of that, doing print guitar magazines when the internet came along, and everyone looked at each other and said, well, we better find something else to do, chaps.
It's been a good run.
Yeah. So, you know, and I still have lots of friends who work in guitar magazines, so all due respect to those guys. But yeah, I mean, the job is still the same, isn't it? That's, I guess, again, to bring it back to this discussion about what is the future, the thing that hasn't changed whatsoever, people want to play the guitar, and they want to rock out, or the bass guitar, or the drums, or whatever it is. And they want to do that, and they want to see people doing it, and they want people to tell them the stuff that's cool. So that fundamental desire to want to do it hasn't changed whatsoever. Just the means of which they find out has changed, maybe.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Nick, I don't know if we came to you on that question about internet and sales and how that helped you.
The internet was a very scary thing whenever it happened for me. I think our first internet dealer was Music Toys.
Oh wow, yeah.
And maybe I think all of our other dealers were just mom and pop shops that didn't have websites. I remember talking to one and telling them, hey, you should probably look into building a website, and they just kind of laughed at me. This is, I always tell people this is the accidental business. This never was supposed to be anything. I built myself a pedal and, played it with a friend. A friend asked for one of those pedals. I built it for them. And then that made its way up to like Raleigh, North Carolina. Yeah, exactly.
The accidental rock and roll.
Right.
Everything was an accident in rock and roll, wasn't it?
And so,
that old thing? Oh.
Yeah. This store in Raleigh called me, and then the next thing I knew, I was building, spray painting enclosures that I was buying from Electric Harmonics on my dad's pool table, literally, and labeling them with silver paint, and a tiny little brush sitting there.
Yeah.
And that's what really started for me. But then we went from that to like the internet happened, and it was like, okay, you can't spray paint pedals anymore. Like, we don't have time for this to dry. Like,
yeah.
we have too much time. We have too many of these to build. We can't wait on these things to dry, and that was due to the internet, and between our website and whenever Reverb came along, there was a big uptick. Every time there's been a new thing that's come along in the industry, that's been a trendsetter or a new outlet even for sales. It's been just another rise, another uptick in sales, and that's not a bad thing. It's very interesting because we didn't do direct sales for a long time, but then we found out that we were losing a ton of customers that were just not going to buy from anywhere else. And then, we realized we didn't have the coverage that we needed, in some parts of the country. And so, different things, it happened over the years, and we've made changes, and we're here, and the internet has helped along the way. It's also been very chaotic along the way. The internet is a very strange place at times.
Colt and I talk all the time about how this industry is really just a ton of hobbyists turned businessmen.
Yeah.
I mean,
I had no clue what I was doing business wise.
Yeah. I mean, how many of us remember the days when it was like business is like not a word that was like even on our minds at all. It was like message boards, and we're building pedals for us and our friends.
Yeah. I learned business. I think I learned stuff about business about like 3 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
I learned how to run this thing about 3 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, Robert Keeley is like 3 miles that way.
Right.
And I remember, being in high school, and like he is just barely starting out, and we're all like craving like how to like build pedals. There was no kits, there was no, there was barely any part supplier websites. I mean, it was Small Bear, I think, and that was it. And that was huge, that was a big deal. And stalking Robert when he was building in a little like 10 by 12 building outside of his house, and just trying to learn everything we possibly could. I mean, those were some of the best days ever, because it was just all of us, trying to understand how to even do this at all. And then the internet comes along, and it's like, oh, wait a sec, a lot of people can ask for these now,
Right.
How is he, by the way? Do we know? He had heart surgery, didn't he?
Rob, I haven't heard a recent report, but
I was talking to Jake about it. He said that he was good.
Yeah, the last thing I was gonna say, I talked to Jacob as well, and yeah, heard the same thing. So I think he's doing okay.
Cool. Oh well, let's wish him well in his recovery.
Yeah.
What about music then? Come on, that's the big one. If we're going to talk about the future of pedals, I guess, do you guys listen to, I don't know how it works in the US. In the UK, we have something called Radio 1. And I tried to listen to it once. And it doesn't make any sense. It just sounds like a giant compressor and limiting amplifier and a load of auto tune. So that's the end of my grumbly moaning. What do you guys hear?
So I'm into heavy music. So
okay.
Oh, that's healthy.
I don't have
that's
this
healthier.
problem.
Yeah, right.
If I go to download or I went to see Rammstein or Slipknot, and they're obviously playing guitars, they're obviously cranking their amps. Saw Alice in Chains recently. That music's still alive. That scene is still massive.
Yeah.
And it's all guitar based. It's freaking awesome. You know, seeing Rammstein is an absolute experience. If you like the music or not, go and do it because it's incredible. So I think I'm not so much into Radio 1, but I do listen to modern metal, and I think it's still awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. Having just moaned, I genuinely love Taylor Swift. I love Casey Musgraves. You know, that stuff that does get played on national radio. There's great guitar in a lot of that stuff. Really, really great guitar. But,
that new Taylor Swift record is amazing.
Before
I heard a thing, I saw the list of people who worked on it, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be incredible." Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say then. So, what are you hearing? What excites you musically?
Guys, I'll be right back.
Yeah,
go for it. I just, I don't know. I still just enjoy exploring Spotify. Is that cool? Is that okay to say? I mean, I don't know. People send me stuff and I just listen to it. You know, I'm kind of one of those guys that I'll listen to anything. I'm not necessarily going to re-listen to a lot of it or like it all, but I'm just intrigued by, you know, the expanse of sounds and therefore the expanse of like creativity. You know, you're basically listening to like creative moments when you listen to a song. And I just like, it's just almost overwhelming, you know, when you think about like, what was that like to be there in that room, or how did this come about? You know, I like hearing a lot of like the behind the scenes stuff too about production, and like, cause you really get to hear inspirations, but then also just like thought processes on technical, you know, on creating the song or the sound within the song. I mean, in terms of artists, I wore the Taylor Swift record out. I'll say it, you know, and I still listen to it. And I mean, yeah, I'm probably, I tend to lean more towards like the country roots Americana side of things, the stuff I re-listen to. But yeah, I mean that, and you said Musgraves, but I mean, that was obviously like a massive record for us guys that like, you know, are really into that genre.
So as somebody who designs, you know, devices for people to make new noises with, then do you listen to music and go, oh wow, that's that algorithm in the delay that didn't exist 5 years ago? Do you hear that coming through, or are you still hearing AC15s and you know, clones?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I'd like to think I can pick up on really interesting or different sounds pretty well, and then think like, if I was going to try to make that sound, what would I do? Like, how do they do that? You know, how do they approach that? And that was certainly kind of how the Julia came about, you know. I mean, that was a Ryan Adams inspired thing from that self-titled record. And that was hearing, now, chorus isn't like some groundbreaking effect, but it was hearing it used in a specific way on a platform that just wasn't, at least I didn't really recognize it that much, in that way. And then all of a sudden we were like, well, what if we just kind of played into that? And then I feel like that started getting used everywhere in that way, I don't know if that was even applicable to what you're asking, but
yeah, no, it absolutely was. I mean, chorus is a great example, isn't it? Again, we started off talking about looking back and feeling nostalgic about stuff, and it was, it was basically a crime to use chorus for a little while there, wasn't it?
Right, exactly.
But now it's all over everything again.
Yeah. I love this guy named Ben Rector.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of a sucker for a good pop song, and I just think that the stuff that he's coming out with, and a lot of it is people he's working with, I just really appreciate the sounds and the songwriting as well that's involved. Yeah.
What about you, Nick?
As far as what was the question? Sorry.
Well, sorry, we were talking generally about any discussion of what's new in pedals has to go hand in hand with what are you hearing in music, and what are these devices allowing people to do?
Yeah, what I'm hearing in music is of late, I end up, you talked about Radio 1 and all this stuff, and I'm always cruising on Spotify and just trying to find different things there. I don't really listen to terrestrial radio anymore, and
yeah,
I canceled my XM subscription because it was just too expensive. I saw the bill come in and I was like, wait, no. So I was like, we're gonna do something different. So I wound up, just poking around on Spotify. I found a lot of interesting bands there, and what I'm hearing is it's a lot of like incorporation of different music nowadays, where we're there's one band that I'm listening to that incorporates kind of industrial electronic stuff along with the guitar stuff. And there's a couple of different bands that do that, where there's like heavier guitar riffs, but then there's also, some poppy synth stuff in the background going on, but it's kind of metal, but it's kind of pop, but it's kind of all these different things all combined. And it's really interesting. And, a lot of the different bands that I'm hearing nowadays are fronted by females. They're that they have more. There's more of a feminine presence in the music nowadays, and that's not a bad thing. That's actually a really good thing. And we're starting to see I'm starting to hear more of a diversity in the music show up, and that's awesome. Back in the day, it was I guess Thin Lizzy and and all these Thin Lizzy and Led Zeppelin and all these different bands, and it was mostly guys. And now we're seeing this huge diversity thing taking over, and it's awesome, because like the amount of new sounds that are coming through and coming out it's such a diverse range happening right now.
Very cool. I think that probably, I don't know about you guys, but probably brings us to a neat wrap up. I would have thought. Feels to me like the future of pedals is the same as the future of music. It's we're all still suckers for good songs, it seems. So whether it was, something from the 1940s or 50s, and it was a great song and it had a great chorus, I just don't see that changing. Music may be more textural, and I think, you can split the genres any way you want, but a great song and that human connection seems to be the thing that binds us to music. And I love what you all said at the beginning about this tangible effect of guitars and amps and pedals, because that's why we do it. I'm certain that's why we do it. Doesn't feel to me like that's going to change anytime soon.
I hope not.
I'm not worried.
Me neither.
We said it, didn't we?
Yeah.
We probably all watched Star Trek in the 70s and 80s there, or at least saw the reruns. And he looks on his watch and the guy's talking to him on a screen on his watch.
Oh, man.
Who could ever imagine that happening?
Yeah.
So no doubt none of you want to divulge any really interesting new stuff that you're working on then?
We're a bit overwhelmed with the amount of stuff we've got going on.
Yeah, we kind of stopped. I don't even know if we'll put out any new products, you know. I'm going on vacation after this call. We're taking a break.
I'm gonna come find you on vacation if that's okay.
Let's party.
Yeah, like we're stuck in trying to catch up mode, but we're you know, there's always new stuff coming out.
4 knobs and 2 LEDs, right?
You know, 4 knobs is really pushing it. You're asking an awful lot there. Like I said, I look forward by looking back. So
yeah.
When
you talked about the first 400 of those not having an LED.
Yeah.
I assume you meant it was an incandescent bulb, and then you went to LED.
Right? Yeah,
the candle.
It was a candle.
Right. You actually had to. It came with a guy with a lighter.
Right.
It came with it whenever you stepped on it. You would light
gas street lamp style. You know.
Exactly.
I can hear Zachary Vex yelling from here.
Hey, that was the coolest effect I've ever seen. If I could get one of those, life complete. That was amazing. That tremolo.
That thing was crazy.
Man.
Okay, let's wrap it up then, chaps. So you have been watching the future and mostly past of Guitar Pedals with Guitar.com Live. We should say thanks to the people at Guitar.com and BandLab for putting this together. Gentlemen, it's been wonderful to talk to you. How lovely in these times to be able to hang out and geek off for a second.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thanks so much.
Great to see you all.
Thanks for including.